Ayy, look, yeah, ayy. I'm in the lab like Dexter, brand new batch he tested. I'm with all the extras, don't try and bitch, I'm pressure. I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers. I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers.
Jump right into it. NFC West record predictions. I'm to kick us off.
Well, I don't think this should be that much of a hot take, but I think the Cardinals are probably going to be the worst team in the NFL. I think when I look at this roster, they're essentially devoid of talent, especially after losing DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, you have Marquise Brown, Buda Baker, but really outside of that, I mean, how much talent is really on this roster with Kyler Murray being out with a torn knee? I mean, Colt McCoy is going to be their starting quarterback, and I don't expect them to win that many games. So when I look at this team, I think for them at least, I can see a season where they finish 4-13. They're going to go for that number one overall pick, and that's what they have in mind. The next up is the Rams. I think the Rams, Stafford, he's probably going to be healthy this season. They're far away from that 2021 season where they went all the way to 2022 season where they won the Super Bowl. But I don't think they're ever going to reach those heights again. They're going to be a pretty mid team. I can see 7 wins on the books for them. I think that's a fair assessment for this roster. I mean, they lost Jalen Ramsey. Aaron Donald's still there, but they lost a lot of guys. Leonard Floyd isn't there anymore. Bobby Wagner, who I think was kind of underrated for them, he's gone as well. So they lost a lot of the defensive talent that they had. And overall, the offensive end is really just Cooper Kupp left. And, Cam Akers, he might have a breakout season, but I don't expect much from this offense. So I say 7-10 for this team. The next team up, I think the Seattle Seahawks, and when you look at this team and the amount of stuff that they got done in free agency and the draft and what they added to this roster and what they're able to produce last season, when I look at them, I predict they can up their win total from 9 to 10, maybe potentially push to 11. But just to be safe on the safer side, I think 10-7 is a fair assessment for this team. Maybe 11 wins is a potential because when I look at this offense after adding a guy like JSN, who to me is an elite separator, now you have Tyler Lockett, DK, and Jackson Smith and Jigba. I think that's an elite trio, one of the better wide receiver cores in the entire NFL, if not the best, up there with the best of them. And then next up, you got the 49ers. I mean, they're always going to be competing in this division. I mean, you have an elite defense with those weapons of Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle and Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey. I mean, this team is just loaded. And to me, when I look at this system, it doesn't matter which quarterback comes in as long as they're competent. They're going to get the job done, whether it's Brock Purdy, whether that's Sam Darnold, whether that's Trey Lance, whoever comes in, they're going to be competent. So when I look at the 49ers, I think 12-5 is on the cards for them.
Yeah, man, we're going to start off with the Cardinals, man. Y'all know me. Not the biggest fan of the Cardinals. Last year, I predicted them 5 wins. This year, no Hopkins, no J.J. Watt. Kyler Murray might be done sitting out for the whole year. If they, they start off slow, they go 0-6, 0-7. They might just hold them out. And I think I'd be giving 4 wins. I think it's a little too much. I think they get 2, maybe 3 wins. 3-14, maybe 2-15 for them. It's the best way for them to get that number 1 pick. And they have that Houston first round pick as well. So it's another top 10 pick in the cards. And for them, just at this point, it's rebuild. I don't know if they want to continue on with Kyler Murray, but they got a guy projected number 1 next year, Caleb Williams, coming out of USC. He's a phenomenal quarterback, and they might have to gamble, trade away Murray or, rock with Murray and just build up on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball. So I see them going 2 to 3 wins. Colt McCoy is behind quarterback. They drafted, I think, like a 7th round rookie or 6th round rookie last year. He's going to be backing up Colt McCoy. So, offensively, Marquise Brown and James Conner, that's all you have. And other than that, it's a pretty horrible team. So I got them 3 wins. Rams, I agree with Abby. I do see them going 7-10. I feel like, they're going to go away from that old style offense that they used to have back in the past. And they're going to go, rely more on the run game when they had Jared Goff back in the day, force feed the ball to what's his face, Cam Akers. And what type of receiver Cooper Kupp is. Him and Stafford, they got this connection. They're going to eat. And other than that, on the offensive side of the ball, they really don't have much. The O-line's pretty beat up. Defensively, they lost a lot of players, like Abby mentioned, Ramsey, Floyd. Aaron Donald's by himself. It's probably his last year. He's been contemplating retirement the last couple of years. Every offseason, should I retire this offseason, or should they pay me more? Should I retire this offseason? Should they pay me more? And I feel like this is going to be his last last season on the team, but I do see them going 7-10, middle of the pack team. They do got a okay roster, not a horrible roster, so it's gonna be an okay season for them, man. These last two spots, man. I don't want to be crazy and all, but I'm gonna give the Niners respect. They're gonna be 12-5 this year. I feel like they're gonna win the division again. Offensively and defensively, these guys are stacked at every single position. Offensively, especially with McCaffrey, Debo, Kittle, Ayuk, they got a phenomenal roster. Kyle Shanahan knows what he's doing. It doesn't matter what type of quarterback he puts in there. They're gonna, turn up. It could be Lance, it could be Darnold, it can be Purdy. They still, they're still gonna win. And we don't got to speak about that defense. Top 2 defense in the NFL, one healthy, one of the best defenses. They got one of the best linebackers. We got one of the best defensive players on the line as well. And I do see them going 12-5. And for my Seahawks, I do see an 11-6 season. And I feel like our defense is going to be a step up from what it is last year. I feel like we, picked up, some spots that we needed to stop the run defense, the run game. We got Bobby Wagner back. Jamal Adams is healthy. We got Draymond Jones from the Broncos, the D tackle, big stuffer. So, there's some key positions that we got back on the defensive side of the ball. We upgraded in the draft as well. We got Jason. And we picked up Devon Witherspoon from Illinois. He's another phenomenal quarterback. And I feel like our team is going up and up. Geno Smith got the offensive talent that he needed. We got the great run game with Kenneth Walker. And I do see us maybe 12-5, but 11-6 at best. There goes my take.
Okay, so Abdi gave the Cardinals 4 wins. You gave them 2, 3 max. You guys are being extremely generous. I mean, I know this is the NFL and any given Sunday is a real thing, but I think this might be one of the the only teams that go 0-17. There's nothing good that's gonna come out of the Arizona Cardinals season when the season kicks off. There's nothing good that's gonna come out of it. I'm looking at their schedule right now, and there's maybe a couple wins potentially on the cards when they play the Falcons or when they play the Texans and things like that. But other than that, they play some really good teams that are extremely better than them. And the Arizona Cardinals right now, they're directionless. I understand that they're not going to be a very good team this year, and there's going to be some tough decisions that need to be made once this season is over. But I got these guys going over 0-17. It might be the crazy take at this point, but maybe in December I might be right. But I can't see these guys winning a single game this year. There's honestly no need to be competing at a high level because the season's already lost once Kyler Murray was announced that he tore his ACL last season. And so I'll go ahead and give these guys 0-17. For the Rams, we're pretty much all in the same ballpark. Maybe about 7-10 wins, 7-10 record. Maybe I think I have them at 6-11 at worst, 7-10 at best. This roster overall, obviously, they let go of Jalen Ramsey and they still got Aaron Donald around. Like Big H mentioned, he's going to be retiring pretty soon, or maybe going in a different direction, maybe in a different franchise, play out a couple more years. But he won't be on this Rams roster next season. Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp, although Matthew Stafford, claims that he's playing his best football as of lately, and he's feeling the best ever, the best that he's ever felt. I'm not really going to buy that. Obviously, a lot of people are going to come into training camp and say the craziest things, and just hype themselves up and pretty much put no doubt and no fear into anybody's ears. And so, we really just don't know Matthew Stafford's health and how he's feeling and how he's doing. But we'll see come week 1. But him and Cooper Kupp, obviously, that connection is strong. So I think 7-10 is respectable for this franchise. The Seattle Seahawks, I got these guys finishing with the same record they did last year. I can't see this team getting any better. Obviously, they've made some moves in the draft and then some quiet free agent moves as well. But I'm looking at this team from top to bottom. My issues aren't really on the offensive side. It's more so on the front seven defensively. Obviously their secondaries can go toe to toe with any secondary in the NFL. My only issue is that front seven. They struggled heavily stopping the run last year, and I'm not too sure if any of their free agent acquisitions are capable enough to fill up that gap. Obviously, they went after a corner with their first round first round pick in this past draft. When obviously they probably could have addressed a different need if obviously they want to stop the run. We all remember when Josh Jacobs ran all over them last season, but 9-8 though, not bad, but obviously not really better than what they did last year. And then obviously the San Francisco 49ers. I think these guys are probably going to run the division for the foreseeable future. 12-5 record for sure. I can honestly see them finishing 13-4. The San Francisco 49ers are just one of the most well-constructed franchises in the NFL. Although they haven't had a Super Bowl to show for it in recent history, we all know how beautifully constructed their roster is from top to bottom. So, 12-5 at worst, 13-4 at best. Whoever it is under center, whether it's Brock Purdy or Trey Lance, these guys just pretty much have a Rolls-Royce roster, and Brock Purdy and Trey Lance are just in the driver's seat. It don't take much to drive a Rolls-Royce. You just got to know how to move the steering wheel, put your foot on the gas pedal. That's about it. Let the car do its thing and show it off to the world. But 13-5, 13-4, 12-5 at worst for the Niners. But that is my NFC West predictions. But let's go ahead and go back to the Arizona Cardinals for a little bit. As we all know, this season is going to be an extremely lost season. Kyler Murray will not be playing. He has the potential to come back at midseason, but will the Arizona Cardinals bring him back if they're already having a losing record at that point? Might as well try to tank for a higher draft pick. DeAndre Hopkins is gone. Now they don't necessarily have a wide receiver one. Their wide receiver one is Marquise Brown. And as Big H mentioned, Caleb Williams is in this upcoming draft. And if the Arizona Cardinals are looking to rebuild, what move should they make, in order for them to jumpstart their rebuild? Because they have Kyler Murray under center right now. And we all know the contract that he received from the Arizona Cardinals. I think it was maybe last offseason. And now they're in a situation where they have the potential to get the number 1 overall pick and potentially a top 5, top 10 pick from the Houston Texans. And so do they keep Kyler Murray, maybe move off the number 1 overall pick and like the Bears did? Or do they just move off from Kyler, draft Caleb, and then go about it like that?
I think they should just decide to stick with Kyler Murray. I mean, you handed him an extension, and I do believe Kyler Murray is obviously a very talented player. Don't get me wrong. When I view him talent-wise, I mean, the ability to get out the pocket, the arm strength, the zip on his throws, multiple years where he started off the season hot. He was in MVP discussions, and then later on, injuries caught up, and, a lot went through those seasons with the Arizona Cardinals. But when I look at Kyler Murray, I think that they're better off just keeping him and kickstarting their franchise off with the high-end defensive talent, maybe picking up an offensive lineman or talent at the wide receiver position. I mean, when you have guys like Marvin Harris Jr., guys like that don't come often. I mean, he's one of the highest graded college wide receivers we've seen. Guys since Jamar Chase, since Julio, those type of talents don't come often at the wide receiver position. So, when you have 2 picks that can go that high, I feel like they can go for a position where they can go for a defensive end, or they can go for a high-end defense talent, and they can go for a guy like Marvin Harris Jr. If possible. I think keeping Kyler Murray is probably the best decision at this point. I think they know what they're going to get out of Kyler Murray, and they have seen flashes of what they want from Kyler Murray. It's just him putting the pieces together and them just keeping him healthy, and him being able to fix on issues like his issues are not necessarily talent. It's more so outside of talent. It's more so of his attitude and his work ethic. But when it comes to talent, I think Kyler Murray, he's very, very extremely talented young quarterback. It's just issues outside of that I have problems with. 2020, 2021, like I mentioned, he started off the season hot. Same thing. They slowed down. But I would keep him, and then I would just draft two different types of talent that this team needs. I mean, at the end of the day, they're devoid of talent. And I don't think it's really at the quarterback position. I think it's everywhere else. I mean, when J.J. Watt left, he was probably their best defensive player outside of Budda Baker. So I think that's what they need to target.
Yeah, they just paid Kyler Murray. I don't think it's an opportunity to trade him. I don't know what you're gonna get back. I mean, you look at the market. I don't think he goes for a first round. To me, it's like it's a waste of a pick, waste of a trade if you trade him. It's a whole lot of money for me. It's like, hey, might as well just keep him. You get the first pick. You load up on the defensive talent. You have the Texans' first-round pick. You fix up your O-line, or you stack up on draft picks, and essentially you just rebuild in the draft. Hopefully, some people come during free agency, but you don't have to waste another first-round pick in the quarterback after how long Murray been on the team? 4 to 5 years. Hasn't been a while, and he's not a top 5 quarterback. I mean, he got paid top 5 quarterback money, but you got to take the losses where you got the losses at. You lose J.J. Watt, you lose DeAndre Hopkins, you lose almost everybody on this team. It's time to rebuild. Keep Kyler Murray, you get 2 first-round picks, and then that's where you started off at. So I don't essentially think they should trade him. I mean, Caleb Williams is crazy talent, but What does that fix for the team?
I'm actually just very distraught. I really can't believe what I'm hearing right now. You guys are pretty much saying if they land the number 1 overall pick, and we all know the consensus number 1 pick is going to be Caleb Williams, you guys are saying that the Cardinals got to go in a different direction.
Yeah, I'm saying that they should just keep Kyler Murray and just go for two other positions.
I'm not too entirely sold on that, man. I mean, I think about it like this. I think obviously we're hearing reports about, this Caleb Williams guy from USC. Obviously, we've been hearing it for a couple of years now, and obviously he has the opportunity to enter the draft next year. And so, people are saying this is the best quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck. And we all know how special of a quarterback Andrew Luck was when he entered the league. And so the way that I'm looking at it is, if you're able to land the number 1 overall pick, and obviously Kyler Murray, even if he doesn't play this upcoming season, it's really going to come down to their new head coach, who I believe is Gannon from the Philadelphia Eagles, the old defensive coordinator. It's really going to come down to who he really wants under center, because obviously they pay Kyler Murray all that money, and if they end up just moving him off to a different franchise, it's a huge salary dump. And so you essentially draft Caleb Williams, who's going to be on a cheaper contract and who could be potentially better than Kyler Murray. And so I think it makes 100% makes so much sense for them to just do that instead of just kind of keep that number 1 overall pick, keep Kyler Murray, and pretty much.
I mean, who says they have to keep the number 1 overall pick? They can get a haul for that number 1 overall pick, if anything. How many teams do you think would be desperate to have Caleb Williams?
A lot of teams, but the thing is, though, this guy's they're saying he's one of the best prospects coming out of.
That's my point, though. If his hype is that high, right, and I agree with his hype, I think the guy is an absolutely phenomenal quarterback. If you're in that top 5 or you're in that top 10, and you're like, okay, my quarterback position is particularly great right now, you're looking at that number 1 overall pick like, yo, what can I give up? And the Cardinals, if they get that number 1 overall pick, they have all the leverage in the world. So a team is going to end up giving up a haul if they want that number 1 overall pick. It's like, think about how much the Texans had to give up to have 2 picks in the top 5. So now imagine the Cardinals, this is for a number 1 overall pick. This is for Caleb Williams. They're going to give up a haul for that. So I think, if you want to fast track a rebuild, that's the best way to do it. A team is going to end up giving up a haul. And I don't think it's as simple as moving off of Kyler Murray's contract. I think it's a bit trickier than that. And from what it seems like, from what Jonathan Gannon said, it seems like their target is to win games. But, at the end of the day, I don't really believe that. I think that they're going to end up losing enough games to get that number 1 overall pick. But if you're a top 5 team, you're going to end up eyeing that number 1 overall pick and thinking, okay, I'm going to give up a haul to get this guy Caleb Williams. So I just think that's what the Cardinals should do.
Okay, the thing is, though, we're looking at every team in the league at this point, because now the Arizona Cardinals are on the clock at number 1. That number one overall pick is available. What team really needs a quarterback like that? Looking at the AFC East, the Bills got their quarterback, the Dolphins got their quarterback, the Patriots, there's some potential there. We'll say that's one. The Jets, Aaron Rodgers, they're not taking anybody. Chiefs, Chargers, Raiders, the potential is there too. So that's 2 teams. Broncos are going to keep Russ. Bengals, Ravens, Steelers, and Browns are not going to move off from any of their quarterbacks. Jaguars, Colts, Texans, not going to move off from their quarterbacks. Titans they're probably another potential team that might want to move up in the draft. Now we move on to the NFC. Eagles, Cowboys, Giants. I'm very hesitant to say the Commanders, but it's going to be that depends on Sam Howell and what he does. But it's a potential team, so we'll go ahead and put that in there. Niners, no. Seahawks, no. Rams, no. And then obviously the Cardinals are on the clock. Vikings, I don't see us making a move like that. Lions, I can't see it. Green Bay.
Why can't you see the Lions? Or is that because of the games that they're going to win?
Yeah, because I think the Lions are going to win a little. I think the Lions are going to be just fine. I think Jared Goff is. I'm not.
My thing is, though, it's like team situations change throughout the year. Like, a lot of stuff can happen. Whether that's injuries they pick up injuries, or a team that you didn't expect to be like. Let's say, for example, the Rams are just dog shit. Like, that's a potential as well. But I don't know if they have their pick this year. In the first round, I'm not too sure about that. Those guys leverage their future for that Super Bowl. But let's say there's potentially a team that unexpectedly that you think that was going to lose that many games. They lose games, and already the teams that you mentioned, and there's a lot of team dynamics that can just change throughout the year. So, like I think teams would be willing. Like if you're in the top 5, you're going to be like, yo, like what do the Cardinals want for that number 1 overall pick if it's Caleb Williams? Like I think teams would be willing to move up a lot just to get that number 1 pick.
Hypothetically speaking, if the Arizona Cardinals get that number 1 overall pick and they aren't able to find a suitor and a buyer for Kyler Murray
at the price that they're looking for,
at the price that they're looking for, do you think that they still use that number 1 overall pick on Caleb Williams and have him just battle it out with Kyler Murray?
I don't think they do that just because, I mean, didn't they have a situation with Josh Rosen where they drafted Josh Rosen and Kyler Murray came?
Let's not utter Josh Rosen and
like
Caleb Williams in the same sentence, man.
No, I'm saying they had the same situation like that. You drafted a guy that high just to replace him the following year. I mean, I don't think that's something that they'd want to do.
But see, here's the thing, though. The reason why they did that was because Cliff Kingsbury was a new head coach for the Arizona Cardinals, and Josh Rosen wasn't his guy. And so he saw an opportunity and said, I'm going to go get myself a better quarterback, and I don't think it's going to be a battle at all. Now, Kyler Murray's my guy. He was the best quarterback in that draft class, and Josh Rosen is going to have to suffer. And so,
how much sense does it make to have 2 guys battle it out when you gave one an extension just a year ago?
It doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, I don't think the Cardinals will do that, but I just think Caleb Williams is too good of a prospect to pass up on. You know, like even if you get a haul for him, even if you get a haul for that number 1 overall pick, I'm not too sure if that haul is going to be a lot better than what Caleb Williams is going to be as a quarterback in the NFL when he comes in from day 1. And so that's just my only issue with it. And also, I just honestly don't know if Kyler Murray is Gannon's guy. Like I just don't know if Gannon is going to see enough of Kyler Murray this upcoming season to determine, like, hey, Kyler Murray's my guy for the future. Let's go ahead and try to move on from this number 1 overall pick so we can get some more assets, kind of like what the Bears did with Justin Fields. So Justin Fields was their guy. No need for that number 1 overall pick. Let's go try to get some weapons and some more draft capital. And so, but in order for the Bears, they've seen Justin Fields on tape. They got some sort of tape on Justin Fields, and so they made that decision on themselves, saying like, yo, we don't need a quarterback. We're just going to stick with him. I'm just not sure if Gannon is going to use film from years before he got there to make that decision.
To be fair, I mean, there's a huge gap between Caleb Williams and the quarterbacks that came out of this year. Like if Caleb Williams was in this draft, like there'd probably be more of a, like, I think I'd lean way more to Caleb Williams over a guy like Justin Fields because the tape, at least Kyler Murray has that 2020 tape, that 2021 tape, though, when they were starting off 7-0, 6-0, whatever it is. I just feel like you gave a guy an extension a year ago. Like, it doesn't make much sense after a year of giving this guy an extension to be like, okay, let's deal him for however great of a talent Caleb Williams is. It's like you already had your like how like you already built your team around what you wanted for Kyler Murray, and you already have an idea of what he's gonna be. If you draft and I feel like the Cardinals, they do rate Kyler Murray highly to be able to give him that contract, and so I just think like this team that's like completely devoid of talent, like you can start in multiple positions, and if anything, if you get a haul for that number 1 overall pick, a lot of teams would be hunting for it. So that's like a huge way to just rebuild your roster at one point,
I completely get it. I just personally feel like, man, Caleb Williams is just too good of a prospect to pass up on. But it would make sense in their situation to use that number 1 overall pick as leverage to any of these franchises that might be desperate once the season is over. But aside from the Arizona Cardinals, man, this Los Angeles Rams team, although we had these guys going 7-10, I'm honestly just confused as to what direction these guys are trying to go in. I mean, I think first things first, I think this is going to be Sean McVay's last year as a head coach for this team. I think, this past offseason, he was contemplating about leaving and going into broadcasting. And I think with the way this upcoming season is going to go for them, with them finishing with a 7-10 record, I'm not too sure if he's going to be sold enough to come back. Aaron Donald's already contemplating retirement as well. They're kind of already in terrible situation because they traded off all their draft capital and sold their soul for that one Super Bowl. Whether or not that Super Bowl was worth it, Rams fans think it was worth it. Obviously some other people might disagree. But for the Rams, where do these guys go after this season? Because this is going to be a lost season. It's going to be a 7-10 season, if anything. And I just don't know where these guys go.
I mean, they're kind of stuck as it is right now. I mean, they leveraged their future for the Super Bowl. I think it was worth it. Any team that wins a Super Bowl, I think you can't really complain. The whole point of, I think, teams sacrificing their picks and making moves is to be able to win a Super Bowl. And I think that's a trade-off that they got. That's the cost that they came at. But, for this team, I think after this year, they're going to be making essentially just getting rid of their older players. I mean, we might even see Cooper Kupp potentially after this year be gone. It really depends, but they already moved on from Jalen Ramsey. Aaron Donald might retire this year. Matthew Stafford. If Sean McVay's gone, who knows if Stafford, is going to remain on this roster. But I think this is probably this last year's team. This last year is going to be the last time that they're going to be competitive. At least I think for the most part after this year is when they really start to enter their rebuild. I think this year they're kind of stuck with the pieces that they have with Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, which is enough to get you some wins, but not enough to compete. So after this year, you're going to see them, kind of focus in a specific direction. And I don't think Sean McVay is going to be a one to go with that direction. So we're going to have to wait and see.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I do not see them continuing in this direction. Sooner or later, it was going to be a rebuild. They're at they had a good 3 to 4 years. They sold everything. They won a chip. I mean, you win a Super Bowl. A lot of teams don't get that opportunity. So for me, if I was a fan of that team, I'll be happy with it. But at the same time, I got to look forward to the future. And it's going to be a long, long, tough rebuild. Aaron Donald is probably done. McVay's done. Stafford's on his last legs. He's probably over. You probably can't get anything for him. Cooper Kupp, you send him in the trade market. You probably can get some picks back for him. But at this point, it's, going back into the draft and getting a lot of picks back and just hopefully rebuilding and finding some gems in the draft, So they knew what they were doing when they sold a lot of these picks and built that super team a couple years ago. I mean, they understood it. And they probably have a plan to rebuild, so we'll see what happens.
I mean, I know you're happy these guys are going to be falling off the face of the earth really soon. I mean, the Cardinals have already there. The Rams will be there. It'll just be a 2-team race. Be easy sledding for you guys.
Tired of Aaron Donald killing us every single week, man. Can't wait for that guy to retire. Cannot wait for him to retire.
Yeah, he's almost out the door soon.
Record a new hit, then we making us a film. Wouldn't sign a deal if I got a couple mil. Been in the lab, now they throwing out deals. Seeing now late, now that's overkill.